Hey guys, what's up? Stock Retail coming back to you. We got another update on the case. Pretty wild week. We get the case settled. We all start moving on. We figure out this kind of AMC dividend. Check my last video on that if you want to kind of understand that a little more. And then today we get the news, okay, never mind, the settlement is denied. I'm going to talk through today. First of all, I've read the court's opinion. So basically, the court itself, kind of the magistrate or the judge, if you want to call it that. Um, I think in Delaware it's called like the Chancery Court or whatever. Um, they come out with an opinion that responds to this settlement proposal and explains why it's denied. As I've read through, I'll give you one quick punchline before we go through the details that feels more like to me, denied might be a pretty strong word. It's we need to wait and talk this through is more how I'd look at this. So let's just go right on through. I've taken the time to read the court's opinion. It's out there on the internet. You can see there's a few apes who've tweeted it. I'll try to link it up here in the description of the video. I've taken the time to read it. Let me give a couple disclaimers first. So I've told you on this channel, I do have 2 masters in business. For one of those is an MBA. I had to take a business law class. So, you read through a lot of court cases and write papers about them and try to understand business law. But the disclaimer here is I am not a lawyer. I don't have a lot of experience in business law. I've taken a single class in it. So you're here listening to a guy on YouTube. I'm not at all going to pretend I'm an expert. I'm going to show you what I've read and show you my response to it. And generally, if you just kind of use logic, you can kind of understand it. So let's go through this, but I just wanted to make sure and give you that disclaimer. All right, so I mentioned the motion's denied. I'm putting this language for now. There's really a for now feeling to it, and we'll go through why that is. So you can just see, as usual, I'm kind of giving screenshots directly from this filing. And so you can just see the judge is basically writing this, and he's writing this to the lawyers, essentially. So that's who the counsel is. So he says, "Dear counsel, blah, 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 the motion is denied." Well, here, let's see why. So let's just talk through why, but let's also talk through, I don't like to just leave you with, just what's happening. I like to point the way forward and see what I think is next. So we'll talk through those. First off, remember that the agreement, if you go all the way back, there's some language in the filing that kind of says, as of February, whatever it was, in the court, they'd agreed to keep the status quo. I said on another video, the status quo just means like as is, right? You're not changing, you're not implementing any of the stuff that AMC had voted on. So the judge is kind of reminding everybody, listen, we put the status quo kind of injunction in place, and we were going to wait until this hearing, April 27th. But as we all know, the last couple days we've been kind of dissecting this settlement. Both sides sought to move a little faster. And so we had this proposal of this like AMC kind of dividend to the common shareholders. And you can see the judge's point of view on this. It's, hey, you guys were trying to go and enact this settlement before there really was a normal notice process to stockholders. So essentially they're saying we were supposed to be given time for us to react before this could be implemented. And it's a court's job to protect stockholders, to allow for any objection or anything like that. Now, I think a lot of us know who's been objecting all the way along, both in the first place and then now potentially who would object to the settlement. And a lot of us, frankly, have pretty negative feelings about the people fighting against this, including a lot who I believe are just pretending to be apes and are really fighting for the wrong team. So I've started to use that language a lot more. I'm paying attention to who's fighting for which team. I'm fighting on behalf of retail, the little guy. Some of you maybe have heard my story. I grew up raised by a single mom who has no college degree. She was an immigrant. I know what it's like to not have much and to have to go to a food bank and have people help you give you clothes and stuff. So I'm fighting for people like us who have scrapped, through our lives. I think if you're fighting for anybody else, you're fighting for the wrong team. But that's not what this video is about. So anyway, the court basically says, hey, you're kind of moving too fast. And here's where we get into, it's really all rule-based. Now, think through, if you're a court, you're all about rules and procedures. So now the judge is kind of saying, here's why I can't let you sort of skip the process. So they say, here you can kind of see, hey, generally, whenever a judge kind of says generally, they're sort of saying there's a history of law here. And we're going to kind of have to stick through this. Sometimes there could be extreme exceptions, but when a judge kind of says generally, they're just saying, like, hey, almost all the time, this is how it's worked. So you see this language: status quo order binds the parties until the court enters a final judgment. Now remember, we weren't going to meet until April 27th with the court. So then you can see the court says, hey guys, I'm referring back to these rules. So you can see this Rule 23 and 23.1, and you really kind of see what he's referring to, he or she, I guess I didn't check who it was, is referring to, look at this sort of next set of green lines: absence of any demonstrated need to reorder the established and purposeful order of operations. If you kind of know math, there's this thing called order of operations, right? You got to go in a certain order. Like you multiply before you do adding or subtracting, as an example. If there's stuff in parentheses, you've got to do that first. You look at exponents before you look at some other things. So that's kind of that language, right? Order of operations. There's a way we do this. And that's really the point of courts. They're very purposeful, very ordered, very disciplined, very process focused. And that's how we have the rule of law. So the judge effectively is just saying, listen, we've got laws on the books. These laws protect shareholders. We don't let you go fast for a reason, because even if you're good, like let's say we all trust Adam, and I know some of you who reply don't trust him. I do. I've been very clear. If you're at this channel, I'm someone who trusts the leadership of this company. But so for a minute, let's just say, hey, even if you think that everybody involved here were good guys and made good decisions, the court is just saying, that's all well and good, but I can't give you an exception and then start having to give other people an exception, because not everybody's going to be good and not everybody's going to have good intent. That's the reason we have sort of these rules and established procedures. So the judge is just saying, you haven't made a case for why this has to go faster. You haven't given us good enough reason to give you an exception, so we're going to have to follow this order of operations. These were just some of my notes as I went through, so it'll just kind of re-summarize everything I just shared. So first of all, the motion was denied. Okay, pretty clear. Thanks, Captain Obvious. The previous agreement was to this status quo until April 27th. So the judge kind of references this settlement and says, you're trying to go fast. You've kind of asked for everything to be executed before there was like a normal notice to stockholders kind of process. They talk about the general rules for status quo orders and that you're supposed to wait. And the court actually, I guess there's kind of past history that the court, this was more language I hadn't highlighted for you. On the next to last bullet here, the court has cautioned against settlements in the past, settlements before the hearing, that it really needs to go through the hearing process. And so I'm just kind of saying my own thought here, hey, there's probably precedents here that they're kind of referring to. And there were just a lot of concerns for going through the due process of the law. The judge at one point even used that phrase, due process, right? So we're just talking about following the normal rules of law. And the judge kind of references the need to assure the interests of any absent class members or stockholders, who've been fairly represented. So, for example, let's say there's this settlement that's giving more dividend to AMC shareholders, common shareholders. I suppose if you only owned APE and you didn't own AMC, then you're sitting here going, wait, that's not so fair. So they're going to have to kind of give this time for people to respond. As annoyed as I am that this is all getting delayed and, after hours is ridiculous again on both of our stocks, and I'm really sick of a lot of manipulation and corruption against our stocks, and I was excited to move forward. As annoyed as I am, I still can respect and appreciate that a judge is saying, hey, I can't just throw rules, procedures, and laws out the window because this is good for you this time. I've got to basically follow the rule of law so we don't get into any kind of favorites in the future where they kind of pick who they give exceptions to and others they don't. So I get it. Honestly, I do. And so I can respect it even if I'm annoyed. Let's go back though. So now I just want to talk about, so we talked about the why. Basic why is just plain vanilla, got to follow the rules. Going to have to wait till April 27th so far is what this looks like, even though the two sides had agreed. I want to talk through a little bit of my point of view originally about this case anyway, and what I think might play next, and kind of point out why this may actually be good for us apes. And I don't mean to be like all over optimistic there, but let's talk through why I'm thinking that. So I'll just bring you back a while back. This was in a video, or you can just see I had tweeted this. When Adam and the team announced the vote results, I had just kind of noted those down and documented those. So I can't remember all the numbers sometimes off the top of my head, so I've got all those here. So you remember the share increase overwhelmingly passed. But what I want to zero in on, and you trolls take note because you keep trying to hit me on this, and you are mistaken. Some have even called me a liar on this. It's it's a it's just a point of fact. I'm sharing the actual numbers that are documented. So I mean, good luck with that argument. What I want to point you to is the AMC vote. So look kind of in the middle of this tweet. AMC common shares. So they gave us the numbers, separated out AMC vote, ape vote. Why am I really zeroing in on that? And I'm going to show you the other kind of vote, on the reverse split as well. The class action suit that Allegheny brought is supposed to be representing AMC common shareholders. My whole argument from the day I heard about the case was I am an AMC common shareholder, and they do not represent my point of view, and I'm not happy with this lawsuit, and I don't give them really sort of the right to represent me. I object to this lawsuit as an AMC common shareholder, and I voted my AMC common shares, and I voted for. And you can see here, 132 million plus AMC shares voted for. Only 47 voted no. So that's about 3-1. Not quite. And I know on the reverse split vote, so the last one was the share increase vote. On the reverse split vote, very similar. And I had shared with you all, this was a 2.8 to 1. So 280% more. Just look at the AMC vote there in the middle again. 280% more AMC shares voted for than voted against. And you can see how many of the shares voted. By the way, I believe I recall from AMC's kind of charter, basically, that it's like in the prospectus, that you have to get at least 33% shares to vote. And we got 35% of the common shares voted. So I'm completely ignoring the ape vote. Even if you want to say to me, retail, of course, ape was going to vote yes, ape shareholders, which of course I'm also an ape shareholder. Even if you ignore the ape shares and you only talk about the AMC shares, it's an overwhelming yes vote. So why am I highlighting that so much? This case that Allegheny, whatever, brought, they purported to represent the common shareholders, and they are saying the common shareholders didn't want this. Well, here's the common share vote. The people who actually cared and voted 280% times more yeses than nos. It feels like a slam dunk to me. If I was any kind of lawyer in this case, I would just say, it's just logic. You're saying you represent common shareholders, and yet the common shareholders voted for this. So if you fight against this, you're not representing the overwhelming majority of common shareholders who voted for this. I'm sorry if you're against it. I'm sorry if you're angry at me. Actually, I'm not really sorry. What I'm really saying is you're going to have to accept this vote. There's just no way around it. This was the vote. So that said, here are my thoughts on this denial. First of all, it's plain vanilla. By that, I just mean, I guess if you're an international ape and some of the English, phrases don't make sense, I'm just saying this is a very simple following the rules decision that the court made. At first, when I saw the tweet today, I was like, crud, what's happening? As I read it through, I just realized, okay, the judge is just saying we have rules and I'm going to follow the rules. Sorry, guys, you can't go faster. Going to have to wait till April 27th, and we're going to have to get together and talk this through and give time to decide if this is happening. I've got this thing here that says voice. Here's something that's really ramping up for me, really becoming more of a priority. I'm seeing a lot of very negative people, and honestly some very uneducated people, who are sending letters to this court saying that they want this vote overturned. They're against the vote, which, again, let's go back. Imagine, especially in a democracy, the idea of 70% of us voted for, 280% times more for votes than no votes, and someone's in a court saying, throw that out. They're stealing my vote at that point. I'm not okay with that. So we had the vote, we had the process, we voted for it. There are people who are sending this court letters and saying, overturn everybody else's vote because I didn't get my way. So here's the thing, apes. I want to ask you specifically, write your voice to this court. You don't need to say what I'm saying. You don't even need to agree with me. Make your voice heard. I'm really, really personally frustrated and tired with all the sort of loud negative people and some who are incredibly uneducated um, trying to sort of uh, derail and short circuit the entire process. Maybe circus slipped out because they are a bit of a circus show, and that part of it's been fun to watch, I suppose. It's entertaining, but it is frustrating as a shareholder. So I want my voice heard. I'm going to send a letter to this court to say, I'm a common shareholder. I voted yes. I expect you to uphold the vote. If that's the case, here's why this is good. Here's why I highlighted the vote and all of that. This case probably just gets thrown out. That's always been my argument. I think the case gets thrown out because you can't say you're representing the common shareholder and really focused on that language, because that's what this court case is. You can't say you represent the common shareholder while you ignore the vote of the common shareholder. Those two don't go together. So, pick a lane. Either you're against the common shareholder and you don't care about our vote, or you're for us and the case is thrown out. I don't personally see another way around it. It's just logic. Okay. Write a letter, please. I'm trying to track down the link for those letters to the court. I think it's time for us to be heard. I really do. Please be heard. Even if you write one sentence, to the court saying, I'm a common shareholder, please throw this case out. That's all you got to do. Last thing, let's all focus on what matters. Like, this case is going to be resolved at some point. We always get distracted right at the time we're ready to celebrate. Mario came out, Air movie, there's actually a couple other movies. And so my point of view, guys, I would just celebrate good stuff. We've got popcorn still ramping up. Don't forget the Paint movie. Kind of looks funny. Owen Wilson, that's coming out. Air, Mario, like I said, celebrate what is good. Don't get too distracted with, I've even used words like frustrated and whatever on this video today, but in the end, always come back to what you can control. You can control driving revenue into AMC by going to movies, buying the popcorn, getting your friends to go to movies, renting from AMC on demand. Celebrate movie culture. That's what we've been trying to save, right? Sometimes we get distracted because we got to do all this DD and we got to look at this court case and we got to look at the price action and we're trying to stop corruption and manipulation and all these things. And all of that's real. But simplify it all back. For me, we've been trying to save our movies from day one. We used to hashtag that all the time. So go. There's some great movies this weekend. So you know what I'm going to say. Let's go.